Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jessica Lothian, and I've had the pleasure this year of completing my Masters by Research at the SABE lab. So as Hugh's just explained to us all, the changes that have occurred recently in the Welsh education policy have really set the foundations for my research to take place. And as a result, I've conducted a pilot study that's explored the feasibility and transportability of KiVa to the Welsh secondary school context, which today it's been kind of a bit of a hot topic in terms of, is that plausible? So going into this, my aims were to explore the experience of teachers in terms of training. So was this in a online format or in-person format? What did they enjoy about training? And, were there any areas of improvement? The second thing that I wanted to look at was the experience of delivering KiVa. So how were schools able to launch their programme and inform their students and the rest of their school body, including parents, about the programme, and how they had used the indicated and universal actions, and any barriers specifically or facilitators that they'd experienced along the way. And finally, I wanted to investigate any suggestions for future development of the programme, so that we could see if minor adaptations might make it more feasible to use in secondary schools. So to do this, I reached out to the 7 schools within Conwy who had been implementing the programme, and unfortunately only 4 of these schools were willing to participate. So this meant that I went out and recruited a further 2 schools from outside of Conwy. So we had 6 schools in total, with 15 teachers agreeing to participate. So quite a nice amount of participants. And then I also got in touch with Conwy's local KiVa coordinator, who was kind enough to participate as well. So I conducted semi-structured interviews, which explored the aims that I have previously outlined, and I then coded and thematically analysed these responses to see if there were any common themes across the teachers that we could pull out and explore more, and maybe give us more insight into where we're heading next if we are to apply this to secondary schools. So I ended up with 10 main themes and 21 sub-themes, which, if you know anything about qualitative analysis, that is quite a lot. I will not bore you, especially after lunch, with every single one of those, because we simply don't have the time. But I'll just summarise what I think is most helpful for you to take away from this. So the first theme that I thought we should kind of look at is the rationale for implementing KiVa. Obviously, schools have lots of different things that they're having to balance, and so understanding what about KiVa is drawing them to take on the programme is quite an important thing to look into. So from this theme, we can see that schools, teachers expressed that their schools wanted to improve the effectiveness and perceptions of their anti-bullying protocols. So in some instances, for example, where major bullying incidents had happened, of course this impacts the school's understanding of teachers' ethos towards anti-bullying programmes and anti-bullying protocols, and this can sometimes lead to negative views within the school body. So they wanted a programme that could maybe help them to address the bullying in their schools to change these perceptions. They also stated that they wanted to enhance their students' current knowledge about bullying, and they felt that a formalised programme would help to do this. Finally, there was statements that that external endorsement from Conwy Council or other schools influenced and encouraged schools to trial out KiVa, as they'd heard positive things and wanted to see if it would have the same effects in their school. In terms of the training, it's important to say that obviously a lot of teachers received training during COVID. So as a result, it was most teachers received training online. However, overall, it appeared that teachers enjoyed the training, and specifically how interactive it was, in that they were able to go out into breakout rooms and discuss with teachers from other schools about planning ahead, and they also appreciated that they were able to go use the materials and be hands-on to get their heads around the materials that they would be using going forward. However, because of the online format of the training, one of the negative pieces of feedback that was received was that sometimes being online meant that it was more distracting. So if teachers were doing the training from their offices, they might have external distractions within the school, and this might lead to cameras being turned off or things like that, which disrupted conversations. In terms of the delivery of KiVa lessons, teachers highlighted that they liked the resources, and that the resources were simple and sort of pre-packaged, pre-made for them to put into lesson plans quite easily. And in addition, they were able to tailor the content to meet the needs of different pupils at different age groups, and to kind of benefit all of their students. In terms of the positive outcomes of KiVa implementation, teachers suggested that the programme gave them more structure in terms of how to approach bullying. And this made it more fair for them, because the students understood the consequences, they knew what indicated actions would take place, and this also ensured that staff felt that they were safeguarding the pupils more, but also themselves, in that they had a procedure to follow, and they had clear records of what had taken place in response to incidents of bullying. So with this structure also came better communication networks and better rapport. So teachers stated that they had more shared responsibility when tackling KiVa, and that it was more time efficient because it wasn't just one individual but a team of people, so they could take on different responsibilities along the way. In addition, they stated that for students there was a better environment, so students felt more empowered to stand up against bullies, and they also felt empowered to talk about their victimisation. So this next theme was quite a sizable theme, looking at the barriers and the facilitators. So in terms of staff buy-in and motivation, obviously this is something that's quite key to implementing a programme, and for schools that maybe had lower levels of staff buy-in, it seemed that they described at points it impacted the delivery of the lesson content especially. As kind of mentioned before, there's lots of things that teachers are doing, their own specialist subject as well, and so it was kind of seen as an additional thing that they maybe didn't feel they had time for, along with their other pressures. In terms of delivering Unit 2, again, with the age range that Unit 2 is geared towards, and that kind of overlapping with the transition between primary and secondary school, some teachers suggested that there was confusion as to whose responsibility it was to deliver that content, whether that be primary or secondary schools. When thinking about integrating this into the UK context specifically, some teachers highlighted that maybe the vests weren't appropriate because of the age of the children and kind of the anticipated negative response that students might have towards individuals wearing the vest. In terms of planning and strategy, some schools had more time to plan, and in one instance, one school suggested that they were asked to pair up and to try and think of different ways that they could integrate it, not only into PSHE lessons, but into history, IT, and other lessons as well. So, you know, having that time to plan was really key. And having frequent feedback, not only the annual survey, but additional feedback from students, enabled teachers to adapt the programme and to make sure that it was tailored to specific cohorts of children. So finally, the gaps and improvements that were highlighted focused on developing resources. So with, you know, online bullying and cyberbullying being quite prevalent, teachers were asking for more digital awareness material and material that focused on cyberbullying. And in addition, they stated that they would like to see more materials in Welsh and also just more information in general for parents and mediating with parents the bullying incidents that were occurring. And in addition, they wanted more clarification in terms of working with cluster schools to ensure a smooth transition from primary to secondary school. So overall, the findings are, in terms of the barriers, replicate previous findings in terms of some of the barriers that were faced. So it's common that teacher buy-in, staff buy-in and time issues can impact a programme. However, there were some specific barriers that highlight also how we need to move forward if we are to implement KiVa into secondary schools. So for instance, looking at the use of maybe adapting more resources targeted at cyberbullying, or looking at seeing if there's anything that we can replace KiVa vests with that's more age appropriate. So going forward, we might want to make these adaptations and work with secondary schools to ensure that they meet the needs of staff and pupils. We might want to go ahead and do some small-scale trials of the effectiveness, having made these changes, and the results suggest that more supervision it needs to occur to help schools to work with primaries and secondary schools to make these changes and to ensure this transition from primary to secondary school. Thank you.